We're continuing our series of interviews today around trauma surrounding pregnancy and childbirth. So I've got Gemma here with me today, who I'm going to be chatting to. So welcome, Gemma. It's lovely to have you with us. You're married to Simon and have been for how many years?
21 years.
21 years, fantastic. So you and Simon got married and you made the decision to just wait a couple of years before you started trying for a family. Do you want to just share the story of what happened when you did start?
Yeah, so like you said, we had a couple of years together and we'd always talked prior to getting married about wanting to have a family. And then that started happening. And basically, the first several pregnancies, unfortunately, failed in miscarriage. And that progressed to a third time. The fourth pregnancy was ectopic and I had to go and have surgery and I had to have one of my tubes removed, and that progressed. So over the course of 10 years, in fact, we went through, it was at least 6 miscarriages. We had the ectopic pregnancy, and then, but probably a bigger thing, we then had a stillbirth at 26 weeks.
So that all must have been, that whole journey must have been very hard for you.
Yeah, really hard. It's one of those things when you start trying for a family, you think it's the most natural thing in the world. You look around you, everybody's got children, there are babies everywhere. And as a female, you think, yep, we'll just crack on and off you go. And we seem to just be hitting challenges. We knew we could get pregnant, but we didn't seem to be able to sustain any pregnancy. And I think sort of the ectopic pregnancy was just slightly ironic. We thought we'd miscarried and then they take bloods and things, and I was recalled back in because my hormone levels were still going up, and it's that whole, it's only a 1% chance that this is likely, and we fell into that category. So then when we found out that we'd lost Reuben and that he had died, it was really hard. We'd gone 12-week scan, everything seemed fine. After all the miscarriages, we were just beginning to relax into the pregnancy, and it was just a routine 25-week checkup that we'd gone for, and the midwife couldn't find the heartbeat. So we were sent to the hospital for scans where they confirmed that his heart had stopped. And then it's the challenge and the difficulty then of what happens next, because you do sit a bit kind of, okay, it's almost an out-of-body experience. It's just a real disbelief, but it does. They're very sensitive to it, but at the same time, for them, it's a clinical thing as well, and it's take this tablet and come back in 48 hours' time to give birth.
So it must have been a very traumatic time. In the immediate days after having to give birth to Reuben, what did you do?
So for us, we just needed space. Simon and I, we just needed to work out for ourselves what that meant. So we just packed a bag and headed off for the week. There was lots of walking along beaches, lots of, for my part, praying and kind of ranting, I guess. Something else that Simon and I both decided to do was write letters to Reuben, just kind of expressing where we were at, what our hopes and dreams would have been for him, how we were feeling about that, and what we wanted to do moving forward. And we did that very independently, but then came together on the beach one evening with a glass of wine and just kind of read them together and cried together. And because it was, all our hopes and dreams of what we wanted our future to be had sort of been shattered at that point. But it was just, I think for us at that point, it was just really key that we were just together and grieving together, because with pregnancy, there's often lots of focus on the female because they're carrying the child. And, for me, I'd felt him kick, felt him move. Simon hadn't had that, bar the kind of feeling that through my tummy. But actually, it was a joint thing. We'd lost together and we needed that togetherness. And I'm sure family were texting us and it was just, we're fine. But we just needed that time to be together to work out where we were at.
So you've touched a little bit about your, I suppose, grief in the immediate days after having given birth to Reuben. As time went on, did you and Simon grieve differently?
I guess we did. I think it's sometimes stereotypically it's a male-female thing. But we decided we would have a proper funeral, which I think for us was really helpful because it gave us something to focus on. And then it also gave us a place where we knew he was and a place that we could visit and just be. And that was local to us, which was good. And I think for me, I had a lot of the whys. I felt like it was my body that was failing and that it was, whilst there was no reason, they couldn't find a reason why. But it was for me, there was lots of whys. It was like, why get pregnant? Why go through this? Why would this have to happen? And I found it quite hard being around other pregnant ladies. I could cope with babies because I could disattach and then they were nothing to do with me. But actually, particularly seeing heavily pregnant ladies, I found hard. And I know even for my friends, lots of them got pregnant around the time. And I know for them, they found it quite hard telling me. And I never wanted to take away that joy for them and always celebrated with them. But then actually in private, I did have a tear because it's like, but it's happening for you. Why is it not happening for me? And I think we did grieve differently because I think people do. But I think we also had lots of memories. The team at the hospital were amazing. We had a memory blanket that was given to us. They did little knitted teddies. Okay. We had photos taken. We took our own personal photos and we created our own memory box. Right. That, for me, was actually a real comfort because whether we did it alone sometimes and together sometimes, we were able to just remember. And for me, that was really important. I didn't want to forget his face or his feet or whatever the experience was, however hard that was. He was part of us.
I suppose losing Reuben so late in your pregnancy, it sounds like you were well looked after by the medical staff. Is there anything that you'd like to say about kind of that care in practice? Because you did go on to have 3 other children, didn't you? So how did that impact those pregnancies?
It's difficult. Pregnancies for me were never what I would call relaxed. No. You know, days are broken down. It's not broken down into days and weeks. You know, it literally is broken down to every time you go to the toilet, almost wondering, you know, are you going to see something that you don't want to see? However, I do think that I ended up with a point, instead of the whys, I had to just thank God for every day. I had to change my tact, and every day was a gift. Every day was a blessing, and it's like, right, we've reached another day. I relied on a lot of people praying with me and supporting me through that, because I think sometimes you allow your anxieties to take over, and being surrounded by prayer, and I really genuinely felt that through so many of those situations, enabled me just to rest a little bit more in what it was. But the hospital were great. We had extra scans with the consultants. After Reuben, we had a bereavement midwife who came and had some time with us both. There's the amazing company SANS, who were on hand and to support and give counselling if it was required. But then the hospital listened and they induced. We reached a point where, for want of a better word, baby's ready. They can stay in longer, but by the time we got to 38 weeks, they were happy to induce. Right, okay. So all my pregnancies in the end were induced because we just needed to know they were out and okay. Yeah.
As a family of 5
now,
how do you keep Reuben as part of your family dynamics?
Yeah. He's talked about all the time. Right. His 3 siblings very much know he's their big little brother, if you like. Right. They come with us on the anniversary of his birthday. We pop down to the graveside. We take some flowers. We might take a balloon. Sometimes we play a bit of music. It's slightly amusing now, really, because the age they're 10, 7 and 5 at the moment, and Simon and I going down and almost just needing a moment to think, and they're having fun and dancing around and finding things, and actually it's not calm and peaceful at all. But in a way, I think if Reuben was there, he would have been joining in with them. Yes. And for us, it's just, he is he is spoken about. There's no shame in what happened.
No.
I want them to know what happened. I think particularly for them potentially growing up in their own relationships and knowing that these things can go on, I think it's really important for them not to feel frightened about speaking out about them and to know that it's a sad time, it's a difficult time, but it goes on. We haven't yet shared the photos and things with them, but they have asked, and there will be a time when I know that we'll know it's right to share that. But he's just everyday conversation. They all know who Reuben is. They talk about it in school.
Right, that's lovely.
Yeah, it's just...
He's a real part of your family.
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So in fact, actually, there's not 5 of you, there's 6 of you.
Yeah, and the dog.
Oh, right,
Don't
and the dog. Don't forget the dog. Very important, yeah. So most of us listening haven't experienced what you've experienced, but we might know somebody who is going through something similar or has been through something similar. Can you give us any ideas of how we might be able to support somebody? What would be helpful? What would be unhelpful? What things helped or weren't helpful for you?
It's really difficult in some ways because I think everybody's different and it's who you know and how you deal with things. For us, the things that weren't helpful were just the comments which were well intended but actually hit hard. You know, several times people would say things to us like, oh, well, at least you know you can get pregnant, or, oh, well, you got a bit further this time, didn't you? So that's a good thing. And it's like, well, yes, it is a good thing, but actually that doesn't change the outcome. And for me, that just made me grind my teeth a little bit and just sort of I had to remove myself from that. That's not a helpful thing because at the end of the day, I didn't have a baby in my arms. However, I think being helpful, I think it's just having people who are okay to talk with you if you need to. And it's knowing, you know, I used to say to people, please know, I'm happy for you to come round, I'm happy for you to phone, I'm happy for you to text. But if I don't respond, just please don't feel offended. Yeah. If I'm in the right place to talk and I want to, I will. But sometimes I just need to shut myself away at the moment. So it's having people that just understand that they might come and see me or they might come and not. And then people that are comfortable talking about it. And again, that's some people did, you know, some people were happy to come and look at the photos with me and just talk through the whole experience and hold me if I cried. And other people weren't. And it's knowing what you as an individual feel comfortable doing, but being prepared for that with the other person and allowing, I needed people to let me take the lead on how that looked and for them to be comfortable with that. And more than anything, it was also, I just needed people praying for me constantly. And for us as a family, as we were then, just in how we dealt with and managed that. And there were a lot of people that I didn't see, but that I knew who were praying for me and just were upholding us as a family and what we were going through.
With all that you've been through, how do you think that's impacted your relationship with God? And what would you say you've learnt about God over that time?
I've often reflected on this because for me, I always remember as a child thinking, oh, one of the worst things that could ever happen would be to have to give birth to a child that's not living. And I always think, oh, why did I even think that? Because I was like God testing me in a way. It's one of those. And it's that, how did I get through that? But do you know what? I can hand on heart say, my faith never wavered through. I knew that God was with me. I was cross, I was angry, I was hurt. But at no point did I think, forget you, God, you know, that's it, now we're done. I think it almost did the opposite for me. I ended up clinging so tightly because for a long time, I needed to have answers. I had to know why. It was almost like, you know, why bother allowing me to get pregnant if every time you're just going to take this baby away, you know, or in whatever stage that was. And there was a lot of that kind of banter with God for a long time. But I clung on tight because I was desperately seeking and wanting to know. And I honestly can't tell you exactly at which point that changed, but there reached a point where actually the why didn't matter anymore.
Right, okay.
I just had a deep sense of peace, of God saying, do you know what? I've got you. I know what's gone on, I know what's happened, and I'm with you and I'm travelling this journey with you, and I didn't need the answer to that anymore. I still don't know why it happened. I'm sure that God will hopefully use me through it a little in my understanding of my own faith and potentially helping others. But that doesn't matter. What matters is actually, I know that Reuben's in Jesus' arms right now, and he's having a much better time than a lot of us, and looking after my other loved ones as well. And hopefully all my other children are, congregating around Jesus' feet. That's the image I hold in my mind, and what better place for them. But it's the knowing he's with them, and actually that God has carried me through that. And oh my goodness, look at what he's blessed me with. I do now have 3 incredible children, and that will never take away from losing Reuben or the other children that I don't even know what gender they were. But I wouldn't have them if I had Reuben. And again, that's something else that is quite hard. I may have other children, but I wouldn't have them. And they are such a blessing. And I'm sure Reuben lives on through them as my other children do. So I look to them and I thank God for those blessings. And yeah, my journey continues.
Well, thank you ever so much, Gemma, for sharing so honestly and openly this morning. It's been really interesting and helpful to hear, so thank you.
You're welcome.